Welcome to another fantastic edition of State of X, presented by House of Nerd Show. I'm your host for today, Steve. We have Lauren with us over there.
What's up?
And we've got Chris Evans over here. Not that Chris Evans that you know of, but an equally just as great Chris Evans from Let's Go Pod. Chris, you wanna?
How's it going? I didn't know we were doing that. Sorry.
You're just too pumped about talking about X-Men to
I am.
He's thinking about everything he has to say about Wolverine tonight. That's what. Which one? Both.
I'm trying to piece it together as we go.
Yeah, since our last State of X briefing, I feel like a lot's happened, because that one we kind of touched upon the fact that Hickman's going to be stepping away, and this one, interestingly enough, is kind of a prelude to Inferno, to possibly Hickman's last X-Men thing for a while. Possibly discounting the X-Men Infinity books or whatever that's been going on with Marvel Unlimited. There's a lot kind of going on there. So why don't we just touch upon that real quick? Marvel Unlimited just recently had a rebrand where they added these Infinity comics, even though there actually were already Infinity comics, but these are different now because these are vertical scrolling comics. And the guy to pen them was one Jonathan Hickman. So,
Whoa.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that? On Hickman actually still writing an X-Men property?
I think it's cool because he's been so popular with fans, and I mean, we all like him. He's popular, so why not give him something to do? And especially these kind of short form, like I said, they're vertical scrolling, they're different.
Yeah,
but there's still X-Men, and there's the X-Men title, and there's a Wolverine title, so why not? I like the idea of it. And I like this. It's not like, I think when it was announced, some people were expecting like an Ultimates line. That's not what it is.
No.
It's just the same.
Yeah. It's very much it's in the Krakoa era. Right now, the few issues that I've read have dealt with Wolverine trying to rescue mutants that have been captured by AIM. And that's pretty much it so far. Lauren, what are some of your thoughts about Hickman still writing? And do you think he's going to keep writing, or do you think it's going to go off to someone else?
I think this is a good sign because he announced he was stepping away from the X-Men books, not because he was pushed back by any measure. Oh, no. But because he's doing the whole, what is that? The
Substack.
What's that called? The
Substack. Yeah.
I was thinking subtext. I was like, that's not right. So he's doing that. That's what he wants to do. Yeah. And that's what he is so focused on. But even though he's stepping away from the main X-Men books, he so willingly and so badly wants to keep writing X-Men. That's how important X-Men still is to him, in my eyes. I mean, Marvel could have begged him to at least write something. That's possible. But I think he could have said no to that. And he still said yes to this. So I think it's a very good sign. I don't think he's going to, leave completely. I think it's cool. And I think it's a smart rebranding because, again, kind of like why writers and artists are going to Substack, because that's where you get exclusive stuff. That's what Marvel is doing with this new rebranding. They're saying, hey, if you want this, you have to get this. That's how they're getting people to buy into digital comics. And we've talked about that on our show, on the House Nerd Show and stuff before. Like, how do you build value in digital comics? That's how.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's interesting to note, in his Substack newsletter, kind of detailing 3 Worlds, 3 Moons, and that he would be stepping away from Marvel for a bit, or at least X-Men, he mentioned right when the pandemic started and books weren't able to be released, he started penning up this idea of a kind of digital distribution for Marvel books. And he was disappointed that he wasn't able to actually, be able to carry that through because, as we know, printed books are still happening. And I wonder if what's been going on with Marvel Unlimited and his X-Men Infinite books is kind of that model that he was going after. Like, did he have this as an idea of just, hey, you've got Marvel Unlimited, let me utilize that for books that we can put out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And, I think anything's possible. But if it was that important to him, he got credit for it. He would make sure Marvel said, Jonathan Hickman inspired this. Come on, it's Hickman. Like, why do you think he's going to Substack? Like, if he wanted to claim that he did that, or he would. So, but yeah, I think it's good. And I think it's more X-Men content. And that's what we all want, is more X-Men content. So why would I complain?
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, I think that's the thing. It's just more content. But also, I think it's possible that Hickman might have got the idea to go to Substack from this. Like, hey, this is cool. I could do this here. Then I could go do my own thing.
You were very excited about Way of X, and it ended, but then it also had a one-shot that was just released this week called The Onslaught Revelation.
Yes. Yeah.
And for you, I guess the Onslaught Revelation very much is kind of an end of Way of X arc. Like, it's a finale, but it isn't. What are your thoughts on that?
I was underwhelmed, to be honest, with the revelation itself. Like, the whole point of it is that at the end of Way of X, Kurt basically, told Fabian Cortez, hey, I have this big revelation, but I have to die. So I'm going to forget. And you have to remind me what my big revelation is, because it's going to fix everything. It's going to change everything. It's huge. And so upon that, after that issue, I was like, holy shit, what is that? Like, what's that going to be? And so I was actually expecting them to hold that for a long time, like even a year or two from now. Like, it would take a while to build up to what that great revelation really was. But then this issue came out, this one shot, and yeah, I still can't put directly into words what the revelation was. It's more just this big philosophical idea. It's not really anything completely actionable. And the action that is going to be taken as of it, because, something at the end happens where you see that this is going to lead into something else, which I'm excited about that just because. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I read what Chris, you said, and you can expand on it, but you tweeted about it and you were like, yeah, there was just dialogue heavy and I kind of felt that way too. It was just all talk and it was almost like they were trying too hard to, I don't know. It was just, they went too far into the philosophical side of it. And I know Nightcrawler gets more philosophical, but that was too much, I think. I don't know. I wish the revelation had been something more instantly impactful, I guess, rather than just this big idea that, oh, well, okay, great, move on. Like, it's very clear to me that this Way of X and Onslaught Revelation, it could have been so big and impacted all the X books, but it's very clear that the X office said, nope, Way of X is just over here. This is just another thing.
I agree with what a lot of Lauren said, because like her, I was really excited after Way of X, and I was like, okay, this is cool. We got something coming. I like this. And then we got to this issue, and if I'm glad that other people agree with me, because at first I was thinking, man, did this just go completely over my head? Did I miss something? Because it's just so much dialogue and it doesn't stop. And some of it feels like just complete filler. Like there's no reason for all this talking with zero action. And then, I mean, we can do full spoilers, right?
I might as well. Hey, if you haven't read Onslaught Revelation, pause this video right now, go take 15 to 20 minutes to read it, and then come back. Because this is, we might as well just talk all spoilers.
Also, Marvel spoiled the ending of it already. Marvel keeps ruining it.
They did, yeah. They've been doing that. They did that with...
The day of, not even a day after. Jesus.
They did that with Scarlet Witch's death in Hellfire Gala. The day that book came out, they spoiled Scarlet Witch is dead, follow along in Trial of Magneto. That day that the book was released on the Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know who's doing the marketing over there, but with this book... It's like it all boiled down to, that the song from Back to the Future, The Power of Love? That's basically what this boiled down to.
Yeah.
But if you're friendly with everybody, we'll be cool. That was the revelation. Be friendly. Like, we didn't know that already, mutants? And then there was like the suicide party, the murder suit. What was that about?
Death is cool now because it doesn't matter.
Oh my God. And the way they gave Fabian Cortez so much dialogue and then be like, oh, wait, but look, he played you. This is actually about loss. And then they gave her no dialogue. That was really messed up to me.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to my feeling that we talked about in the last State of X video, where I'm feeling a lot more fractured in terms of these X stories, where we talked about it leading up to Onslaught Revelation, where I was saying, I don't feel like it's going to matter. I don't think it matters. And the way Trial of Magneto, I mean, hell, we already kind of, if you haven't read Trial of Magneto issue number 2, go read that as well, because second issue ended and already I'm going, okay, this isn't going to matter at all when it comes to the finish line, right? Like, I feel like I'm not the only one saying that anything that's coming out right now that is being like hyped up in terms of X stuff, kind of minus Inferno, it doesn't feel like it matters.
I feel like all these other books are filler. Even if you look at X-Men number 3 that came out, it's filler. It has nothing to do with anything.
I didn't even read every word of that book.
Yeah, it was really wordy too.
I don't know what to think at this point, because I think I think the biggest catch right now is waiting to see how Inferno goes, because I don't like the conversation hinging solely on Hickman. And I think that's what Inferno is going to prove, this event, because it's his big hurrah for now, right?
Yeah.
If this event means nothing, then the problems in the X office aren't just Hickman.
But I mean,
or not just them, it's also Hickman. Sorry, I said backwards. But yeah, but if Inferno happens to be phenomenal and amazing, and that really is like Hickman's like made it amazing, then yeah, that's really going to say a lot about the current X office without him. But I think at this point, I'm waiting to see what happens with Inferno and whether or not it matters. Because, last episode, Chris, from what I remember, you were talking about how you're like, I don't think Inferno's gonna matter. Like,
I still don't.
Doing this,
I'm feeling like that too, because going back to the behind the scenes that we learned, all the writers and creators, they want to stay in this kind of state of where Krakoa is. They don't want anything to drastically change. And now I'm thinking Inferno is just Hickman's way of kind of tying off some loose ends that he wanted to, and then it's going to keep us in this cycle. I don't think, Lauren, I know you want Mystique to burn it all down. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't want her to burn it all down yet. It's too soon. But I do want hell to break loose, and I want, I have a whole thing. That's another conversation. I have a whole plan for exactly how this should go down, and what won't happen, and they're wrong.
But I agree with you, Chris. I'm now feeling like, even though Hickman's writing Inferno, I don't feel like it's going to matter. I feel like it's going to keep us in this status quo.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I'm actually more excited for it now than I was last time we spoke. But I still just especially after Trial of Magneto, Onslaught, and then just some other things that have been going on, I feel like we're getting back to where X-Men was a few years ago. We're slowly getting back to that convoluted, nothing matters, every writer's doing their own thing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where we're headed again, even more so now. Because, I thought Trial of Magneto was cool and all, but again, spoilers, Scarlet Witch is resurrected in the second issue. What was the point? Why book?
And who knows where that's going to go? Not to mention the fact that I'm not liking the way Leah Williams is writing Magneto out of character.
Thank you. That's my biggest issue, because he's been really, he gets a little huffy at times, but he knows how to carry himself. He's not stupid. And then all of a sudden, he's just behaving like he's a 16-year-old boy. What?
He's behaving like Juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like intelligent Juggernaut.
And that's ridiculous. And there's not even enough reason to. It's not even oh my God, he's been so close with Wanda even recently. He had that one moment with her at the Hellfire Gala, and then something happened to her, and he just goes apeshit. And it's he's going apeshit on the wrong people too. Charles is the one that wouldn't do what he wanted.
Yeah.
He should be screeching at Charles, if anybody. But instead, he's just going around throwing things and beating people up for absolutely no reason. He knows that won't get him what he wants. If he's going to get upset and raise hell, he's going to do it in the way that's going to get him what he wants if he's successful.
Yeah, and it just kind of feels like, oh, here's another Marvel superhero book that doesn't really have much substance, because it goes straight to the action. It goes straight to, let's write Magneto out of character, to the point where now he's coming off like he did pre-House of X, Powers of 10, to the point where he feels like a straight up villain, where Magneto hasn't felt like that within the last couple of years in terms of the Krakoa era. And his immediate thing is, let me just fight all these mutants that are my friends, my allies, my family. It just doesn't make any sense. It's so out of character, and it doesn't even gel well with any of the other books that are going on. These characters are acting this one way in Trial of Magneto #2, and in these other books, we've just Onslaught Revelation, Magneto was in it. So when are these books taking place? How's it all kind of gelling together? Because Magneto seemed pretty chill in Onslaught Revelation, but Trial of Magneto, he's off the wall.
Yeah, he's just throwing things. Yeah.
When are things taking place? Because before, it felt like there was a clear timeline of things. When Dawn of X and all those books started, you can pinpoint when things were happening. When, X-Force #1, when Xavier was assassinated at the end of it, you can pinpoint when that happened in all the other books, because they all touched upon it. But now it's we've got multiple characters and multiple books happening at the same time. Why are they all acting differently? And how am I supposed to determine as the reader which book is first, which is after, and why are they behaving so just out of character.
And it's wild because when you're like, oh yeah, they're making Magneto a villain again, all of a sudden I'm like, dang. And you're right, because one thing that was great about this era is that they actually kind of flipped it a bit, where Magneto made more, he is still Magneto, but you could see his point of view more, and they were actually showing how screwed up Charles is.
Yeah.
And not just in the let's get shock value that they've done in the past, but like actually delving into it. And now all of a sudden Charles is like, woohoo, I'm being calm and I make sense. And Magneto's throwing things again. And it's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Hate it.
I like when we get to see both sides of Magneto. I think that when they play him as a straight villain, it doesn't work because he shouldn't be a straight villain.
Right.
There's more to him than that. And I think Way of X particularly showed Charles isn't all there either. And we don't see that often. And with the way they just switched around was just weird. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because it's actually pretty true. Like, it's kind of a fact what you said, that Magneto as a straight villain doesn't work, because originally in the old X-Men, he was a straight villain. The X-Men books weren't big. He wasn't a big character. And then when Claremont took over, he's the one that gave Magneto the Holocaust pass and everything and made him more human. And all of a sudden, Magneto's one of the most well-known villains and all that.
Yeah, because he's personable, right? You understand the hatred, you understand the pain and the anger, and you understand how that kind of person can do the things that he wants to do.
And if you're talking about new books, so one of the books I don't keep up with like I should at all is with New Mutants. So that there's actually really important shit happening in that book. Yeah. But again, like you're saying, since the book seems so disconnected now, it's not having the direct impact it should immediately. Because there's something going on with Gabby, right?
Yeah, so spoilers on the latest New Mutants if you haven't read it. Spoilers on all the X books if you haven't read it.
Spoilers for everything.
Yeah. So where we last saw New Mutants in terms of the Hellfire Gala was Gabby was murdered around the same time that Scarlet Witch was. And there was the whole stipulation that we learned from in Hellions where clones are not to be resurrected. There's a whole thing. That's why Madeline Pryor isn't brought back yet, which it seems like that'll be answered to as to the solicitations of Hellions. Possibly. I don't know. Can we trust the solicits? In terms of the New Mutant stuff and Gabby, some shenanigans ensued, and they ended up convincing the Five to resurrect Gabby. And the Five pretty much said, hey, we're in charge of this whole thing. The council can tell us to do stuff, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with us. If we want to revive someone, we're going to revive them. And you leave the Quiet Council to the Five, because we're going to deal with that. And they end up reviving Gabby. Like Lauren said, that's a huge thing. Like the Quiet Council made a thing. They made a decree. No clones were to be resurrected. Gabby's back, and like no one's talking about it. It's not a big thing. It doesn't affect any of these other books in terms of, hey, did you hear about that one law that was just what's going on? Like why does it feel like certain things are accepted and certain things aren't? It feels like, depending upon the people in charge, you can get away with things now, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. I like the fact that Gabby's back. Don't get me wrong, but it's another thing where it shows these books are not talking to one another anymore. I
feel like some of this is Hickman is leaving, and I know we can't blame everything on Hickman leaving. I know, but it felt like he was the glue in a way. He was
the head of X,
right? He's the head of X, and with him like preparing to leave or whatever's going on, the editors, I don't know, something has been disconnected here. The machine is disconnected.
Yep.
And what we're seeing now, I think, are just these fragments. They're floating essentially and seeing what's sticking now. And I think that, like I said, we're headed toward that one part that nobody wants to go back to, where nothing matters. In the case of Gabby, I mean, it's a fan favorite. I understand why she was brought back. I think it's cool. No problem with it. But I wish there was an impact to it.
Yeah.
And that's just not what we're getting from any of the books we've talked about so far. There's zero impact. Even like when Madeline Pryor comes back, I don't think there's going to be a big impact there either.
And that's what's so upsetting to me, because if this was all done well, and again, other people have our ideas. I'm not the expert in writing, but all these things connect. Everything that's happening could connect beautifully and lead up to Inferno and actually cause an Inferno. Yeah. So you have Mystique still pissed off, trying to get her wife back, right? She's trying to get Destiny back. You have Nightcrawler just getting this revelation of, hey, we need to hold people accountable, but also let's actually take care of each other. I'm going to start making sure people take care of each other, which is basically him creating his team. He's going to start enforcing that stuff that others are not, right? Yeah. And then you have, so you have that. And so if Mystique's trying to get Destiny back and she flips, what happens when she goes to Kurt and finally talks to him, which we have not seen, by the way? What happens when she talks to him and says, by the way, they will not give me the love of my life back? Of course, Kurt's going to empathize with that immediately. And he's going to go, that's screwed up. So now you have somebody on the Quiet Council that is about to start changing more things, like Nightcrawler, who has that influence on behalf of somebody like Mystique, who she has well intentions, but she's Mystique. Then you have, you know, Gabby coming back. Havoc, earlier in Hellions, wanted Madeline Pryor back and was told he could not have her back. Now he should be going to Quiet Council screaming, excuse me, you brought Gabby back, bring her back, which is what should be happening in Hellions. And all these things can happen and lead up to everybody burning down Krakoa, and people that normally would not, you know, work together, like Havoc and Mystique and Nightcrawler and all these people working together because they're calling out Krakoa and it's bullshit. And they're calling out people like Charles and, you know, Moira and Magneto out on all this crap. And then boom, and then you bring Destiny back, and then everything goes to hell, because then Destiny can tell us whether or not Krakoa actually lasts, which can shatter everything.
And then I feel like what made it so successful in the Dawn of X era was the fact that, you know, a book was released, something happened, the following week, you know, another issue of a different series would be released, and it would be affected by that previous one. Like what you just talked about, Lauren. All of those things that are happening, Gabby getting resurrected, possibly, you know, Madeline Pryor, hopefully towards the end of Hellions. Why aren't they closer together? Why isn't it like, hey, New Mutants was released, Gabby's brought back. Hellions follows up next week with, hey, why the fuck is Gabby back and Madeline Pryor's not? You know, and then you have the week after that, you've got Kurt getting, you know, whatever, dealing with whatever. But like, there used to be a point where that that kind of serialization of the books, of all the books, it made you want to read them all. And it made you want to go, oh, this is going to affect that book. And then it did. Like, it did affect it. But now it's like, Gabby's back. No book's touching it at all. And then it's like, if a book does touch upon it, it's going to be like a month or two later, right? Like, I feel like these stories should have been planned out better so that when that impact, you know, hit, it should have been touched on by another book the following cycle, like the following week. Like, the fact that at the back of all these X titles, it tells us which X book is coming out, which week, when it's coming out, all that stuff. That was used so well early on. Like, you knew, I get this book, I need to grab these books next week, I need to grab these books, because it's going to matter. What happens in this book is going to affect the other books. I know we're saying it like it's a broken record, but it needs to be said, because Marvel is telling us these books are coming out these following weeks. What's the point of getting them and reading them? Like, I agree with you, Chris. It does feel like these X books are now becoming more like the other Marvel books. You know, an Avengers book comes out, and it involves whatever, the Hulk, and then Hulk book comes out, you know, the following month. Is it talking to the Avengers book? No, it isn't. It's doing its own thing.
I think it's one of the things where, you know, people, you know, whether you like the MCU or not, you know, the MCU is very successful. And the reason for that is because they have somebody that is leading it. You know, Kevin Feige, love him or hate him, he knows how to run what's going on with the MCU. He really does. And that's showing in this phase, which I was hesitant to. But this phase is phenomenal now. They're doing amazing, including, you know, with the COVID circumstance and such. You know, Star Wars, you know, whether you like George Lucas or not in general, at least he had a vision and could tell a complete story and all that, right? Hickman is great with the X-Men. He can tell a complete vision. The X-Men need that guidance. Yeah. You need somebody in charge of these writers. These writers, I'm all for writers doing what works best for them, but that's why you're in a writer's room and you have a good leader that can harness all your ideas together. That's not a bad thing. And so I feel like the writers, you know, again, they were all like, oh yeah, we're all just going to do our own thing now that Hickman's gone. It's going to be great. This is terrible, y'all. It's terrible for this universe of the X-Men. It doesn't work. You've created an entire universe where everything, like you said, has to connect, and it works best when it does. And now you're treating it like these are just, you know, any other, like you said, Marvel book that can run on its own. And that's not how the X-Men books work right now. And that's not how we want them to work.
Yeah. So I guess that being said, in terms of that, who would we want individually? Chris, I want you to answer this first. Who would you like to see take up the mantle of head of X? If you could choose one person in terms of the X books right now, whose vision are you thinking that's the person that should rein everyone in and lead them to a singular thing?
You know, I'm gonna. I believe last time I said the writer of Wolverine, whose name for some reason I cannot remember, Benjamin Percy. It just hit me as I was saying.
Wolverine and X-Force,
yeah,
right?
I think Benjamin Percy, he gets the concept of the team. He knows how to juggle the different characters. He clearly gets Wolverine, which is a perk for me, both of them. But I think I would go with Percy or Gary Duggan. Or is it Duggan or Dugan?
Yeah, Duggan. Jerry Duggan.
Right. X-Men book. I would not pick him.
But that I think that's why you should
he's
pick.
writing the current X-Men book.
No,
But
I
I
mean,
think-
you don't like him at all?
No, he's fine. Like, again, he does better. Like, the Marauders book is okay. Well, is he still writing Marauders?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That one I like. But with this X-Men book, and it's the main title, and that's what he's doing, no. I don't want him in charge of the entire universe. He can still write certain things, but I think he's one of those writers that does better with guidance and with somebody else's vision. I don't think he's a visionary, is what I would say.
Right. So, Lauren, if you had to choose, who would you want to be head of X?
That's hard because you can have favorite writers and writers that can write very well, but how do you have somebody that can build an entire universe like Hickman does? I mean, I can't even think of one like straight up just writer that can do what Hickman does with the long run that he always does for years and all that. I don't know. I have to think more on that. But yeah, it would be interesting. I don't know. I'm totally throwing this out there. I don't know if it would actually work, but what if Zdarsky
I honestly
had that kind of vision
in my head. I'm like,
he could coordinate that between all these other creators.
That'd be
Like,
cool.
in my head, I was thinking like you're gonna throw out Zdarsky. I kind of like saw that coming.
Has he done
well,
that
and then
thing?
also, I mean, if you think about it too, I know now he's on the Venom book coming out, but how do you say Ewing?
Al Ewing?
How do you say? Yeah,
Ewing
Ewing.
would be
Yeah,
perfect because he did the whole cosmic stuff.
he
Right?
can. Yes, he can build a universe. He can guide people. I mean, him and Rom are doing them together.
He's also writing
and-
Sword, Al Ewing.
Yes.
So he's
he
already a
could-
part of
he
the
could-
X titles.
Yeah, and Sword is one of the titles that, even though I haven't kept up with every issue, what I have read and seen of it, he includes the entire universe in every issue. Like, he addresses things from the other books and stuff still, which is fantastic. So I think, if he ever gets done with Venom and maybe, Rom completely takes over, because Al is going to be doing Eddie's issues, whereas Rom is writing Dylan's, which is cool. But I think if it goes well and people like Rom enough, which I hope so, because he's one of my favorites, he can take over that for a while, and then Al can come over here when the X office realizes, shit, we need somebody to tell us, help us put this together, because, yeah, we thought this was a great idea, and we're getting yelled at, so.
Quickly also.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to hell real fast.
And I think the sad part is, I mean, I feel like this should be the job of the editor in a way, right? Because normally all the other sides of the Marvel stuff, the editor is the one reining things in and looking after all these books. But it kind of just goes to show that you do need that kind of head of X. You do need someone going, hey, this is what I'm writing long term. Can everyone kind of just sync up for everything?
I mean, that's another option, though. What if you got a kick-ass editor that was the head of X? And you're right, that's literally supposed to be their job as the editor of the X books, is to be the head of X, to put everything together, make sure everything looks and is how it's supposed to be. So maybe they just need a better editor, that can really put it together. Or maybe it is such a big job that, you need two people. I don't know how closely Hickman and Jordan, I'm sure they work very closely together if Jordan's the editor, but yeah.
Or why not just why not just get a few writers together and tell them, okay, we need you guys to pitch 2 years worth of X books together. Work together.
I mean, they did that.
They
They did that with the before Hickman's thing. It was the X-Men. What was it called? There was that 10-issue thing that led into the whole Age of X-Man.
I cannot remember.
Disassembled. X-Men Disassembled. That's what it was. Yeah. Because I remember, because it reminded me of Avengers Disassembled. So it was the 10 issues of X-Men or whatever, X-Men Disassembled or whatever it's called. And then with that, for those 10 issues, they had 3 writers working together to do all of that. And I've heard it didn't work out so well in terms of all the Age of X-Man stuff, right?
I didn't even remember it.
Exactly. That's the problem. I think that's what's happening right now, though. The sad truth, right?
They might.
Well, and I feel like every writer, kind of like they say, no, writers like, we're gonna just do what we want. They're treating it like their own book. They're not treating it like a shared universe. That's why you need somebody to have vision.
That singular vision is what made this Krakoa era, when it started, so enticing, because it wasn't like these other Marvel books. Like, you felt like there was a path, and you felt like there was one story being told. And yeah, you had these other stories that culminated eventually in this one story. Right now, it doesn't feel that way. So on that note, I want to mention we do have all these other books going on. And furthermore, we've learned that multiple X books are going to be canceled or ending or have just ended. And then now, of course, we know there's going to be more X books that are coming up. And Lauren, what are your thoughts? Does it matter in reading these X books if they're just going to get canceled? Or do you think it's a better thing for them to be like a series, have a series finale, and then follow the universe in another story?
I'm hesitant because I want to say, like, if they were doing that, where it's just like, yeah, we've told complete story, now we're moving on to the next phase, which is what Hickman usually does when he's around, then that makes sense. Even if it's not my favorite, I know to expect more good things. The story's going to evolve how it needs to with those characters and all that. However, with everything going on, I feel like, kind of like you said, they're just going back to the whole, we have a bunch of X books and we're telling 200 different stories at once. And they've been doing that years with the X-Men, and Hickman realized it didn't work, and he created a way to put it all together, and it's working. And now they're saying, oh, now we're just going to go back to what we did. And yeah, I don't know. I really hope that they get together. I mean, with the end of Onslaught Revelation, the fact that Nightcrawler is going to lead his team and they're going to get their own book very clearly. I think that's a cool sign. The fact that they're willing to still progress things, because with the Revelation and Kurt wanting to do more, whether the Revelation was great or not, that's still natural progression. He has this big revelation. Now he has to act on it. And so now we're seeing that in this new book. So I think that's great. But why are you ending Hellions? There may be a darn good reason, because you can bring Pryor back and still have the Hellions unless you end it a certain way. But why are you breaking that up? Why?
Yeah.
They're just underdogs dealing with chaos all the time. You can keep that going forever as long as it's still well written.
Hopefully Seb Wells, because he's the one who writes Hellions, right? Hopefully he's got another X title lined up, because everyone seems to love Hellions, and I'd actually like to see what he does on a bunch of other X titles. Maybe not just one that's a comedy. Maybe give him a comedy as well as something that could be a bit more serious too, because his writing's great. He's done, what did he do? He did Avengers. Didn't he do No Surrender, or he did some other stuff?
I think that's the thing about Hellions.
Champions, I think.
It's hilarious, but it's also incredibly dark and serious at times. If you read it, especially with Kanan's storyline, and you have Mr. Sinister's just fucked upness. He's hilarious, but he's actually really fucked up. If you think about it too hard, you're going to be sitting in the corner crying.
He's one of the best characters in X-Men history.
I agree. But then
he's so good, but he's a terrible creature.
I love him. I love him so much.
So if they're just continuing Nightcrawler's story in whatever book will be announced,
Legionnaires.
I think that's what it is called. Why even end Way of X? Why not just continue Way of X? And also, furthermore, why have it end in a one shot? Why not just make it Way of X6? Chris,
their
do you have any thoughts?
Rebranding is the rumor I've heard. In January, they're going to announce a whole new slate of X titles to announce the next phase.
Okay,
so that's why Way of X had to end, because the next phase is Legionnaires. You can't have Way of X. I understand it if that's the way it's going. Which honestly, that's what Hickman would do. I feel like, in terms that he would end his phase and move on. So that makes sense to me.
I think that's what it is. It's just they're doing this in phases. The only problem is when they're ending some of these books, I feel like they're supposed to amp us up for the next whatever's coming, and they're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like I said that about Onslaught. It was supposed to amp us up for Legionnaires. I currently don't care about it. I care about it because Nightcrawler's in it, so I'm going to read it.
Yeah. They can't hype us up too early because Inferno is coming. If we didn't have an event coming up next week, then they'd probably be like, oh yeah, all these X titles coming out in January. But I would expect probably next month. How long is Inferno? A month or two?
It's supposed to be, it's 4 issues, so about a month. I guess it depends on when it's released, right? Is it a monthly?
So end of October, November, they're going to be hyping up all the new books coming out in January.
I guess Inferno would start, and then if it's a monthly, it'll take you to the end of the year. new books will come out. I guess, and the only thing in terms of, I agree with you, Chris. I'm not really hyped up for Legionnaires. The only thing I found intriguing about that is the fact that if you look on that team, Juggernaut is there.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that would play into the ending of Onslaught and in the revelation that they had. You know, that whole forgiveness, love is the key, or whatever it was. I can't really explain it either.
Love thy neighbor, and we're all neighbors.
Love thy mutant on our own island where we're stuck together. Sharing drinks with Sinister. But
they're basically gonna be the nice police. They're gonna be like, be nice or I'll make you.
Like the Hall Patrol or something, like you see in school.
Like a bunch of hall monitors.
Yeah, hall monitors.
Yeah. I like that.
Hall monitors.
It sounds like you don't really care that books are ending if it's a satisfying finale and they can start up in some other way, right?
I feel like that's what they're doing. I think they're just going to recycle. Like, okay, we're ending Hellions. Well, guess what? We got a new team coming. That's probably without Sinister because he is batshit crazy. So we're going to do something without him, but we're probably going to use these characters. Same, they did even like Way of X. That was a good example too. We're not going to have Way of X6, but we're going to do Legionnaires where it's the hall monitors, and I think that's going to be the trend going forward as they do the new phases.
I was just glad that I saw a Juggernaut there and not Sabretooth, because if Nightcrawler was going to be so nice to pull Sabretooth out of the pit, I was going to say, no, you're not.
Actually, if Sabretooth was on Legionnaires, that would make me go, holy shit,
I'd be
what's going
pissed
on?
as hell, because that would be ruining Kurt's character for me, and that like they just established in Way of X that like he understands that, hey, yeah, I won't be super nice and try to get things work, but even he has a line where once you cross that line or boundary, he says enough's enough, and that was important to me. So if he had the nerve to, go ahead, sorry.
But I mean, did he in Onslaught Revelation? You had Fabian Cortez, and he murdered a bunch of humans too, in a way.
That was the writing there was sloppy to me, because the point that the writer wanted to get across Spurrier, which I appreciate the point, it was not executed well in terms of Nightcrawler used Fabian and made it seem like Fabian was the key, but then once he got Fabian to do what he wanted him to do, he manipulated Fabian. He said, okay, great. And then Fabian's like, wait, I'm not the key. It's her. Lost. Yeah, he's like, yep. Yeah, get fucked, basically. That's what Kurt did. But the problem was, instead of giving Lost more of a voice after Fabian had that, Spurrier gave Fabian all the dialogue. That's not okay to me. And that's backwards as shit. But that's not a reflection on Kurt's character, because he still emotionally manipulated Fabian to get him to do what he wanted. And then he said, fuck you. Yeah, exactly. Get wrecked. This is about her. You're still trash. I just have to use you. It's life, bruh. Like, that's literally what he did. But so, if he had pulled Sabretooth out of the pit and said, oh, all is forgiven, Kurt wouldn't do that. No.
But didn't Fabian kill humans too?
Yeah.
So why isn't he in the pit? Like, Nightcrawler's on the Quiet Council.
Because that was established in Way of X when Kurt said, he's not the Quiet Council. So he could take him to a Quiet Council, and then Quiet Council can, give him punishment if he wanted to. But Kurt can't do it himself, and he won't let him. He's not judge, jury, and executioner. He, as part of the council, he made a decision with the council to punish him for that crime.
But the disconnect.
He is not that.
Right? That's another disconnect where it's like Sabretooth went immediately in the pit for killing a human. That was supposed to establish a rule.
Right, but that was because the Quiet Council still decided that, is what I'm saying, though. It was a sloppy decision, absolutely. I'm with you on that. And that's something that still needs to be dealt with, by the way, in the X-Men that's not being dealt with, is the whole pit shit.
Yeah.
But,
I think Sabretooth is a different beast altogether, though, because he just has a string, kind of. He just has a string of
throw Beast in there with him at this point.
I wouldn't mind that. I'd like to see them fight it out. But, he just has a string of evil deeds, so it's not really hurting anybody to throw him in a hole and throw away the hole. But at the same time, I feel like Nightcrawler, with the way we saw him in Way of X, he's very priestly, which he usually is anyway. But I feel like he might find a way to forgive Sabres. Like, you know what, Mr. Creed? Yeah, you murdered people, but you want to be cool now? Let's try it.
I mean, I think so too.
He didn't just murder people. Like, he murdered and he's done all these. Oh, please.
But I mean, look at all these other people that get a pass. Mystique gets a pass. Apocalypse gets a pass. Sinister gets a pass. Magneto gets a pass.
See, that's the thing. One, Mystique probably should get a pass. I think she should, though, especially because of everything she's gone through with Destiny. In fact, she can't get Destiny back. That's fucked up. Sinister should not get a pass. We all know this. Apocalypse should also not get a pass, but he's Apocalypse. So all these people that are getting passes, that's a whole thing, too, that's still in progress of being examined, right? Is can villains actually be reformed? And what do you do about the ones that can't be? And how do you actually determine that? How many chances do you give them?
Yeah.
That's true, too.
Yeah. But I just find the disconnect there where like Fabian, murdered humans and he's not in the same fucking hole that Sabretooth is. Like, it's just another thing in terms of the story that just, it feels.
Well, that was discussed in Way of X because what he did, he drags Fabian by the ear through a portal thing, and Fabian's like, "Are you gonna take me to a council? Are you gonna do this?" And Kurt's like, "Oh fuck no, I'm gonna make you." And then that's where he takes him to Lost, and basically it's like, "You're gonna fucking deal with what you've done," because that's how he feels is more justful than throwing him in pit. Yeah, he could have the council throw him in the pit, absolutely, and he considered it. But like for him, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but he, determined, hey, I'd rather you do this because that's how Kurt is. He's like, I want you to learn from your mistakes. But Kurt didn't get the opportunity to do that with Sabretooth because Sabretooth is brought to a council, and all the council, including Charles and Magneto, who have all the say, by the way, at the end of the day, let's be real, they said throw him in the pit.
Yeah. I mean, more, yeah.
What's Kurt going to do? One vote can't go against everybody else's. That's how the council works.
Yeah. Really, it's Moira still who has all the say at the end of the day.
She needs to be slaughtered. I know that's terrible and would probably make things worse, but also...
It would reset everything, Lauren.
Okay.
We'd be back at square one.
Hickman's gone. Maybe we need to reset everything again until he comes back.
We're back at square one anyway, I think, or we're heading that direction.
Yeah. Chris, is there anything in terms of the X titles that you'd like to discuss?
I'm just interested in Inferno. I know I keep saying that I don't think it's going to matter, but there's a small part of me that hopes it does. Like, I hope this is a meaningful last hurrah for Hickman and that it brings something, not exactly a closure, but it kind of puts things back together. Because I feel like in a way we're a little spoiled right now. We had Hickman commanding this universe and giving us something we didn't know we could have.
Yeah.
Because no X book has really done this before. They've always been, every writer does their own thing and everything exists in its own way. So I feel like we're a little spoiled. And I want that payoff and I want to see it continue. So I do hope it does that. That's really all I'm waiting for is Inferno. Other than that, I'm going to continue to read X-Men, the official book, and hope that does something too. But after this last issue, I don't know.
It seems like, I haven't read the latest one, but it seems like Duggan, he's putting a lot of focus on, what is it, Orchis or Orchid? Yeah. The big, and that's supposed to be the big thing about Hickman's thing, right? Is that they're this for humanity, right? And hopefully he's got the reins on that and he can take it somewhere where it matters. I haven't read the latest, but so far the first couple issues, I'm equally not as impressed as you guys are.
There's I do like it. It's missing something.
Yeah. And
there's something that happens in this particular issue. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but I think we're going to see another Splinter from this team.
Okay.
And I'm interested to see where that goes to. But again, if Inferno doesn't matter, what does anything matter? I think it all hinges on that right now.
The comics world is a mess, but I know, Chris, you've been really excited because they announced a Wolverine video game coming out.
Yes.
From Insomniac, too, which is a wild developer for them because, I mean, they nailed it with Spider-Man, but you can kind of see the steps for Spider-Man when you play Sunset Overdrive on Xbox. And when I was playing that, I'm like, this is straight up Spider-Man. Like, these guys need to do a Spider-Man game. And then a couple years later, they did a Spider-Man game. And then they did another. Now they're doing a third, right? And to see that little Insomniac logo for a Wolverine game, that kind of threw me off.
I didn't know it was Wolverine at first because, we saw the Marvel logo and then Insomniac was like, okay, it's Spider-Man. And then we see a bar. I'm like, what's this?
Yeah.
But then as soon as I saw him from the back with the cowboy hat, I lost my shit. I just lost it because I knew this was Wolverine. And then you see the claws pop. And what worked for me especially is it's Insomniac. So they're putting some care into it. They're putting love into it. Yeah. This isn't like, some off-brand developer who just managed to get the license somehow. This isn't Crystal Dynamics.
I was just gonna say, this ain't no Crystal Dynamics, right?
No, this ain't no Crystal Dynamics joint. This is something else. So I'm pretty excited about it. And it's got 2 of the leads from the Miles Morales game working on it, which is cool. Some of the developers already said it's going to be rated M. All for that. It's been so long since we've had a solo Wolverine game. I'm so excited for this.
The last good Wolverine game, solo Wolverine, was X-Men Origins Wolverine, the video game. Oddly enough, that game was a lot better than the movie.
I had to play that game instead of watch the movie ever again.
Like that game, it was great. Like in terms of Wolverine game, it did everything right. Like the regeneration of the healing, where it happened like real time as you're playing. It was fucking great.
It was so violent. They nailed the brutality of him, the character, the look. And like you said, it was cool when, like, sometimes I just get destroyed to watch the skeleton get peeled back.
Yeah.
You see the skeleton, then the skin comes back. That was awesome.
I'm just as excited as you are for Wolverine game because there's so much that can be done with it. But I'm a little disappointed because it's Wolverine getting a spotlight again. Like he got a spotlight with the two Marvel audiobooks or the podcasts that ended up actually becoming printed books by Benjamin Percy. He was the one who wrote it. And it's just another Wolverine problem, right? Lauren, what are your thoughts on this game?
I mean, I'm excited because the Spider-Man games are so great from Insomniac, and I haven't played the art game you mentioned because I don't own an Xbox, because why? But anyways, so I'm excited. I'm just excited because it's an X-Men video game and it's a superhero video game. Superhero video games were really big when I was younger, and then they got less popular over time, and now they're coming back, and I'm just fucking thrilled about it. And it's a PlayStation exclusive, so usually when games are exclusive, they tend to be better inherently, no matter which system it's on. And if it's a PlayStation exclusive, you know it's good. Like, I don't care what game system we have. You can't argue that PlayStation exclusives are typically phenomenal. And so I'm just really excited about that. I'm excited for the gameplay. I do think they should not waste this opportunity to. Most of the story can focus on Logan still, obviously, maybe Wolverine, whatever. But I think it's a great time to introduce the general audiences that will play this game to his young adult daughter, Laura, who is also Wolverine in the comics. And then that way, if that does well, throw her in the MCU with the X-Men and she becomes Wolverine. I think it's perfect. I think they should do it. Thank you, Marvel. Don't even give me credit. Just do it and I'll be happy.
Welcome to Lauren's TED Talk. I wouldn't be surprised if Insomniac does something like that because it's what they did with Miles Morales in the Spider-Man game, right? They introduced a character that is also Spider-Man in the main 616 universe, and he has just as much weight to the point where they gave him his own solo game too.
If I get Laura's video game, Steve, I will never shut up about it.
Now that we brought up Wolverine, I did want to touch upon your opinions because the next big X event that Marvel announced was the I don't know how to pronounce it because they haven't said it yet. X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine. There's going to be two miniseries happening at the same time, kind of like House of X and Powers of 10. Maybe it does the same way, 10 Deaths of Wolverine and X Lives.
That's probably what it is.
Maybe. But in the same vein as what Hickman did, these two books are going to be happening. It's going to be like Marvel's big X title, in the future that's coming up. Chris, do you have any thoughts on these two books? And it seems like they're going to be quite significant for the X line.
I'm interested, but then I'm not, because how many times are we going to kill Wolverine or try to kill Wolverine?
Yeah.
Seriously, you guys keep doing it, keep showing, hey, we're going to, we did. Guess what? He's back. I'm kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
But I do want to see what's in store for him, so I'll be reading it.
Also, why two books? What's the purpose of having the same House and Powers method is it just a singular Wolverine title? Is it Wolverine going to be is it going to be more than just a Wolverine thing?
I think it is. I think it's a Wolverine family thing. I think that's going forward for Wolverine. I think that's what we're going to have is a Wolverine family, because we've been seeing a lot of the family together lately.
Yeah.
And I like that. I just wish they'd take Daken out, but that's irrelevant.
Maybe it follows a bunch of the Wolverines from the Moira timelines, the different Moira timelines, right? Because Wolverine played a huge part in the House and Powers. Powers specifically.
Well, 10's a magic number, right? So that makes sense. 10 lives, 10 deaths. Yeah, that's probably actually it, Steve.
I think it's just me hoping that it ties to any of those Wolverines, because having some sort of connectivity to what's already been established in House and Powers is only going to make it more intriguing of a story, and it's going to make it feel like it matters, like someone's actually trying to tie it to Hickman stuff. Lauren, do you have any thoughts on X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine?
I mean, I forgot it existed until you brought it up, to be honest. So that's how I initially thought. But now they brought up that possibility. If they did what you just mentioned, which who the hell knows at this point, but if they did, that would actually give me a lot more hope with how the X-Men are going, because yeah, that would connect to what Hickman's originally done. That's still continuing the whole, hey, this is how important Morga is, right? And the lives and stuff. It wouldn't progress it necessarily, because, you know, you're just looking back at those lives for the most part. But I think that would still be a good sign if that's the approach it goes. So while I'm not like all hype about it, if they do that, that's interesting. But at the same time, I love Chris's idea in terms of like the Wolverine family. You know, it's the Wolverine family is becoming similar to like the Batman family in terms of you have the original and they have all these other kids, and now all these are Bat people and Wolverines. They're becoming so popular and well loved, which is great. But the thing we have to all accept, no, whether we like it or not, is that we will never, you know, you can't get rid of the OGs and just keep the kids. You have to keep that's just how it works. And so Logan will always get spotlight. He will always, that's just how it works. But again, if you notice, Laura's becoming hugely popular in the comics, and they're capitalizing on that shit with all the covers.
Yeah, she's on the main X-Men team.
Yeah, and she's great.
Yeah. And she's got every variant cover possible, which is awesome, but also my wallet can't afford it, so I'll just sob. And so that's why I also think, yeah, like you said, like Insomniac's gotta be, you know, like, hey, yeah, we'll put her in, see how that goes. And if they do a good job, maybe she will get her own game, and maybe she will actually become in the MCU. How huge would that be? Even
Hickman kind of saw how vital Laura was as a character. Like, he put her in the vault, right? He gave her a huge character moment in terms of how important, in terms of all the mutants that he could have used. She's one of the three. Like, she's one of the most important ones that he picked for that. So I hope anything else that they do with Laura is, you know, just as huge and as impactful as what Hickman did. For the end of this State of X briefing that we have, what are you looking forward to? What do you want out of X-Men? And is there a certain book that you think is being slept on and is the best thing going on right now?
I wish there was something I could say is the best thing, but right now it just doesn't feel like it. What I'm still going to keep an eye on, of course, is the main X-Men title, Wolverine, Inferno, of course. And I don't know, I kind of want to pick maybe something new to read. I don't really keep up with New Mutants very well. Like, it's not my thing, but I do like the writer a lot. So I think I'm going to hop over and give that a chance.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what they're doing over there.
New Mutants is a lot of fun.
I've heard that, and like I said, I like the writer, I like the team it has, and I've read the Cliff Notes, so I might as well. As far as what I want, I just want good stuff. Just give us good content again. That's all.
Well, we're all begging for crumbs again. That's the current state of the X, is begging for crumbs. Something good, please. You know what? You know, I know I kind of, you know, got on Dugan earlier for X-Men, but Marauders is still good. Like, I really enjoyed the last issue. It was really fun. It gave me a lot of Star Wars nostalgia in a good way. Very colorful. So, you know, I don't think Duggan should be writing 2 books. I think that's a problem too. I think he should be writing one and writing it well. I don't think you need to be a good writer. You have to be able to write 20 books at once. I don't think that. If your best writing is to write one at a time, please do that. But Marauders is really good, so I still keep up with that. I have not dropped that since I started getting it from issue 1. Haven't dropped it. The X-Men, I'm dropping that in like a month or 2. I think I'm getting the next one for a cover, and then I'm dropping it unless it magically gets better, because if something happens, it's probably gonna be an Inferno, and they're rebranding everything in January. And Hellions is still the best, and they're canceling it. So get on it while you can, or get ready to get the trades or the hardcovers, because it's 100% easily the best X book in my opinion. I kind of want to try out Sword, because the 1 or 2 issues I have read were really good, and that's where Storm is, being the voice of Soul over there. She's hanging out there, and so I'm like, I'm in, and Al's the one writing it, so I might just hop over there.
Of the 2 that I've been recommended a lot, it's Hellions and Sword. And so, you know, I'm pulling up that Marvel Unlimited app, and I'm going, you know, add series to library and add series to library for both of those, because I've got to catch up.
You can even forget Marauders. If you only read one X book, it should be Hellions. The others can wait. That's my opinion, though.
That's a strong recommendation, though.
Yeah. It is fun.
I swear by it because when my sibling Skylar got me into this new X-Men because I hadn't read X-Men for years. And finally this year I gave in and read House of X, Powers of 10 because they swore by it and my boyfriend also swore by it. And after I read, I was like, holy shit, this shouldn't work, but it does because I'm such an old school fan. And so I got wrapped up in it and I was like, well, where do I start? Because I had been reading Marauders, but I hadn't, connect all the dots. So reading the trade actually helped me connect dots. And I was like, but what else? Where do I start? Because, you feel like you have to read everything, but you don't have to actually. And so, my sibling Skylar had me read Excalibur. I read it. That magic stuff really wasn't my thing. It wasn't bad. It just was my thing. And then they said, okay, you have to read Hellions. I was like, I don't know. I'm probably going to hate that. I thought I'd like Excalibur and hate Hellions. Nope, Hellions was it. I read the first issue and I was sold. Funniest show of my life.
I do continue to like that there's always an X title for everyone.
Yeah.
But with the way these X titles are, ending and then restarting all this stuff, I think it's harder and harder for people to tell which is the book for me, which is the book that I'm going to like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think they're less distinct now than they were.
I think so too. I feel that way too. Like there's a certain feeling, right?
That's unfortunate because I think the distinctness actually helped because the people that wanted to read everything, but if you could only keep up one or two books, it was you felt like you could actually do that, right? You could read your one or two and be set other than an event or two, right?
But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because it's another feeling that I'm having too, where it's like, yeah, the books look slightly different, like because of the artwork and the coloring and all that stuff, but there was a general tone that was different. And for those books that have been stuck around from the beginning, like Marauders, like X-Force, you said it yourself, like Benjamin Percy, he has a certain tone for X-Force and he's kept it consistent. Like regardless of people's thoughts on X-Force, the fact that it's still just as good as it was in issue 1 in terms of its tone is phenomenal, because at this point, I would have expected it to kind of get melded by some of these other tones of these other books, right? Of the Marvel tone, where it's all just kind of goofy and laughy. There's some serious stuff, but at the end of the day, there's jokes and stuff like that. X-Force is not a jokey book. X-Force is like, Beast is going to get shit done. You are not going to like it, but you're waking up in a Krakoan bed the next morning because Beast is willing to make those sacrifices.
It's like a Black Label book. Like
exactly,
Black Label book.
Yeah, and I do think that those books that started in the beginning of the Dawn of X, they're still consistent with their tone. Marauders still does feel different than those other books. New Mutants does feel different. It feels a little younger. And X-Force, like I mentioned, it feels different. I think it's these other books that are coming on, like Sword, like when Cable came on. Is Cable still going? I don't even know. Did it end?
I think that ended.
I can't even.
See, we can't even keep up anymore. Something's ending at some point,
but those tones of those books, they're all samey. They're all Marvel samey, right? And I kind of have that same feeling with the Duggan X-Men too. Like when I've read the first couple issues, I'm like, the tone of it just feels like a Marvel book, not like the other X books.
Well, and even unlike Marvel books, like the general tone is, but then again, with the X-Men book and with Onslaught Revelation, what is up with all the wordiness? Like it feels pretentious almost. Like what is up with that? You do not need to write all that just to say something. You can say one sentence and move on. Like what are we doing? Like stop. Are they overcompensating for Hickman not writing? Because stop.
It feels like
the art.
Yeah, it feels like they touched upon, what makes Hickman so great when he does his X-Men stories, and they're picking apart certain things, and they're like, he does really wordy things. I'll do that. Sometimes certain things are kind of, but you're right, Lauren. Like if you don't know how to do it properly, it comes off preachy. It comes off like what you were saying. It comes off as a bit too much. Like, why are you writing it that way? Because you're not Hickman. And it's okay. It's okay you're not Hickman.
It makes sense now that I think about that. I didn't think about earlier, but if, Duggan can still write Marauders well because he's kept that tone with that book, but now he's on the X-Men title, which was Hickman's majority. That was his baby. And now he's doing this. Don't write like Hickman does. Do not try to. Please write how you do, Duggan. Jesus, you should have been put on that title because it's your writing, not because you're trying to be like somebody else. So, do that.
And then Duggan comes on and I'm thinking, I'm going to get that same tone. It's going to be an X-Men. It's going to have Cyclops, who's my favorite character. And I'm like, I'm psyched for this because he's doing it so well in Marauders. I want that feeling in X-Men. And from what I've read, it's like, just fucking do what you did in Marauders here. Like, you had it. You had the tone. And I agree. It feels like he's copying like a Hickman tone. But Duggan, you fucking had it. You're doing it right now. Just fucking do it with Cyclops. Do it with Laura. Do it with the actual X-Men book.
I'm really curious to see what you guys think about the third one.
I've got it right behind me. So this weekend,
I told you I literally couldn't even read every word of that because I was just like, I don't want to. About halfway through, like I skimmed as best I could to end, and I was just like, I don't know what any of this impact is. I don't know. I think I'm supposed to really care about this, but I don't. Like, and again, like, they have all these characters. I feel like that's what's happening here is they put together such a great team. He's not using these characters well. He's just trying to accelerate this big over the top plot like Hickman usually does, but he still balanced out the character development with this big plot. All he's doing is plot right now.
Yeah.
And that does not work for this book for me or for any of these X-Men books. The reason these X-Men books are so good is because you have this overarching plot that embraces these characters. And I feel like that's not happening with this X-Men book right now, as there's no embracing of these characters, which is a darn shame. And hopefully he gets there. Maybe it's just going to take, maybe the first arc to get there. He has to find his footing with the book, which makes sense, I guess, but I'm impatient.
I think it's part of that. I think part of that is because Hickman's leaving and you have these writers feeling like they've got to step up in a way. They've got to fill in the Hickman gap. And if you want to fill in the Hickman gap, be head of X, have a singular vision, and force all of these books to kind of adhere to this one connected thing.
And don't be head of X just if you want to be. I think this proves, like I said earlier, Duggan should not be head of X. He should do his writing and what he does very well. I don't think he has one vision to unite everybody, which is fine. Somebody else does somewhere, whoever that is. But yeah. Yeah, and I mean, at this point, who can say what to read right now? Your book might get canceled in a month or two. Yeah, just hang in there, X fans. We'll get there. We got, it's gonna be a rough couple months, but we'll get there.
Yeah, the only thing that we can be certain to read is
Inferno.
There you go. Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So what we learned here today, it still feels like the wheels are falling off of this bus. Hickman leaving does feel like an impact. You can actually feel it in terms of the story, and it feels like writers are trying to like make up for that gap. But all in all, that cohesion that made those X titles so great in the beginning is now kind of falling apart to the point they're not talking to one another. These books are all happening at different times, and it's less interesting because it's not as connected. And I want to feel like I put my time in that book over there. I want it to affect this book over here. Like, part of that stuff, it made it feel like it was the Ultimate Universe in a way, where it's like the shit happening in Ultimate Spider-Man, it affects some of the other books. And it felt like we had our own pocket part of the Marvel Universe where all of these stories that we put all of our time into mattered. And now it's back to Marvel. Now it's back to, it doesn't really matter. Lauren, what are your final thoughts?
I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like, I liked the X-Men kind of having their own universe within a universe. I think that was working. And now that they're trying to like connect them back to the rest of the Marvel Universe much more with the Trial Magneto connecting to Avengers. And then you have the X-Men working in New York with the Avengers and Fantastic Four around. Don't care about it. Don't want that right now. But they're doing it. I don't know, man. The state of X is very uncertain, but we're going to get there. I think there's still hope that we'll find our footing. I think, again, we have to remember this is a transition time. Transitions are hardly ever very smooth, especially something as big as this that affects an entire universe. It's not just about the one person Hickman leaving. It's the fact that affects such a big universe with so many books and people involved. I think we're going to be cool. And even outside the comics, we're still getting X-Men content with some video games and shit. So I'm pretty hyped about that.
Awesome. Chris, what are your final thoughts in terms of X content?
As far as the comics go, I'm with Lauren. We'll see how this goes over the next couple of months. I do think next year will probably be better by default. Let these writers settle into their new roles. Let's get some of these books out, get the new ones ready. Let's get past this event. Let's see where we are. But it's not terrible. I think, I know that maybe we all seemed a little down on it, but I don't feel like it's what we're getting is terrible.
Right.
It's just not what we had.
Yeah, we were eating caviar, and now we're eating like lobster, and lobster's great. It's still great, but it's like we were just giving caviar. What's going on?
Right, we're still not at the Burger King level.
Yeah.
So we got lobster. We're good.
Yeah.
So I'm still excited. As far as beyond that, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff to look forward to when it comes to X content. I mean, we have the games coming. There's not even just Wolverine. We have the Midnight Suns game, which has Wolverine in it. I think Storm is in it. I don't remember.
Magic's in it.
Magic's in it.
Yeah, Magic's in it.
I'm so excited for that.
Exciting. Yes.
Yeah, I've never played a game like that, but I'm going to because it has Wolverine, Blade, Magic. I'm in on that. And you know, we also have the MCU stuff coming. You know, there's rumors going around about who's in Captain Marvel, who's not, who's in Doctor Strange too. There's a lot of stuff that may be happening next year, so there's a lot to look forward to. Just right now, kind of, I'll eat the lobster. It's fine. If I have to, I'll eat it.
All right, Chris, where can the good people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me at that Chris Evans 0 on Twitter. And please check out Let's Go Podcast for all my reviews. I mostly do Batman stuff and X-Men when I get a chance to, when it's not overwhelming.
All right. Lauren, where can the good people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me at Friendly MBHD by. It's down there below. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out our channel. You know, you guys are already here. You can find the House of Nerd Show on Twitter at House of Nerd Show. Same thing with Instagram. And just because it's my thing to say, if you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell, all that fun stuff. That way you can see when we do the next State of X briefing.
Yep, exactly right. Like, subscribe, ring-a-ding-a-ling that bell, and you can find me on Twitter at StovePost. More importantly, though, come back every Sunday morning for the House of Nerd Show, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And be sure to keep up on that X content, on all those X books. If you have Marvel Unlimited, you can find out what Hickman's doing with the X-Men Infinity books. You can find out what's been going on with stuff that you missed that's 3 months behind. And be sure to pick up Inferno, because next month we're going to be coming back here and be doing another State of X. And we're going to be asking ourselves, what's going on with Inferno? What's going on with the other X books? Is the wheel still off this, or how are we feeling after Inferno comes out?